The rain hammered against the hull of the derelict cargo ship like bullets against armor plating. Thomas McKenna pulled his tattered coat tighter around his frail shoulders, seeking shelter in the rusted belly of what had once been humanity's. Pride, the merchant vessel Cassandra's dream. Now it served as nothing more than scrap metal in New Geneva's sprawling shipyard. A graveyard for humanity's broken dreams among the stars dotted 73. Thomas looked every bit the vagrant the security guards assumed he was. His beard was unkempt, his clothes worn to threads, and his eyes held the hollow stare of a man who had lost everything. The alien-controlled port authorities tolerated his presence only because he caused no trouble. Just another broken human in a galaxy that had moved on without his species, the Zephyrian trade. Consortium had been managing human space commerce for the past 15 years, ever since the economic collapse of 2387. Their sleek, biomechanical ships dominated the shipping lanes while human vessels rotted in yards like this one. The 7-foot-tall, crystalline-skinned aliens claimed they were helping humanity rebuild, but Thomas knew better. He had seen what they really were: parasites feeding on human desperation. Thunder crashed overhead, and Thomas shuffled deeper into the ship's cargo bay. His arthritic hands trembled as he arranged some old blankets into a makeshift bed. This had been his routine for 3 years now, ever since the pension office had declared him economically non-viable and cut off his benefits. The irony wasn't lost on him. He, who had once commanded the respect of entire star systems, now reduced to sleeping in the bones of dead starships. The lightning began as a distant flicker, but quickly intensified into a full electrical storm. Thomas had always hated storms since the war. They reminded him of plasma fire and the screams of dying ships. He was about to close his eyes when the first bolt struck the ship's hull. The ancient metal groaned and sparked, but something unexpected happened. The ship's emergency power systems, dormant for decades, flickered to life. One by one, dim lights began illuminating the cargo bay. Thomas sat up, confused. These old human ships shouldn't have had any power left. Another lightning strike. This one more powerful. The ship's main computer console suddenly blazed with activity. Warning lights bathed the bay in red and amber, and a synthetic voice crackled through corroded speakers. Emergency power restored. Identity verification required. Please state name and rank. Thomas stared at the console, his heart pounding. He hadn't heard that voice in 30 years, the voice of Arya, the adaptive response intelligence assistant that had been standard on all Terran Defense Force vessels. Arya? He whispered, his voice cracking. Voice pattern recognized. Welcome back, Admiral McKenna. Emergency protocol suggests immediate activation of dormant fleet assets. Awaiting orders. Admiral. The word hit him like a physical blow. Thomas. Arthur McKenna, former Supreme Admiral of the Terran Defense Force, hero of the Proxima campaign, the man who had held the line against the hegemony for 12 brutal years. That man had died the day the politicians signed the surrender. Or so. He had thought. Arya, run a fleet-wide diagnostic. How many ships still have you installed? Scanning. Admiral, I am detecting 47 vessels in this facility alone with intact Arya cores. Galaxy-wide, approximately 2,000 human ships retain dormant command protocols, all awaiting activation codes that only you possess. Thomas's hand stopped shaking. For the first time in decades, his back straightened and his eyes regained their steel. The Zephyrians had made a critical error. They had assumed that broken, demoralized humans posed no threat. They had allowed the old ships to rot. Never. Realizing that the greatest naval AI ever created still slumbered within their cores, waiting for the one voice that could wake them. Show me the current galactic situation, Arya. Holographic displays materialized around him, showing star charts, trade routes, and fleet positions. The Zephyrian stranglehold was total. They controlled every major trade lane, every supply depot, every strategic point in human space. But their ships were designed for commerce, not war. They had grown soft, believing humanity was beaten. Admiral, Arya continued. I have been monitoring communications. The Zephyrians plan to begin final integration protocols in 6 months, the complete absorption of all human colonies into their corporate structure. Resistance will be met with deportation to labor worlds. Slavery. They meant slavery. Thomas stood up, his vagrant rags falling away like a discarded skin. When he spoke again, his voice carried the authority that had once commanded fleets across 100 star systems. Arya, activate Protocol Lazarus. Wake up every ship that can still fight. It's time to remind the galaxy why humanity once ruled the stars. Acknowledged, Admiral. Transmitting activation codes now. Welcome back to active duty. Across the shipyard, ancient human vessels began to hum with new life. In orbit around distant worlds, forgotten cruisers started powering their weapons. On the edges of civilized space, ghost ships had been drifting for decades suddenly changed course, heading for predetermined rally points. The homeless old man was gone. In his place stood Admiral Thomas McKenna, and he had a war to fight. The Zephyrians had forgotten the cardinal rule of dealing with humans: never leave them. With nothing to lose. And they had certainly never imagined that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you've written off as harmless. As lightning continued to split the sky above, the greatest comeback in galactic history was about to begin. The vagrant had awakened, and with him, the sleeping giant of human military might. The Zephyrians were about to learn why the galaxy had once trembled at the sight of human war fleets. Admiral McKenna smiled grimly as he began planning their education.